My name is Gregory Jackson Haley. I'm born and raised Dallas, Texas, 47 years old. Um, I like to create spaces that encourage people to learn about themselves and each other. No, the things I think are important, I don't know about most, but like I I've gotten really good over the past 8 years or so about getting great sleep every night and getting great food every day and exercising probably at least 3 hours a week. What do I think about most, though? I mean, I feel like ensuring that those happen are important most. I know this last year, things have changed pretty dramatically in the fact that I've I realized 10 years ago, in 2000 November of 2009. It's now, yeah, February of 2021. November of 2009 was when I decided. I had lived in Dallas for 36 years of my life, and I'd certainly traveled, but I'd never spent one full year outside of Dallas. And so I figured that was something worth experimenting with. And so I figured for 1 year I spent entirely outside of Dallas, which ended up being a really fantastic adventure. And when I got back to Dallas, which was apparently the last time we had our snowmageddon in Dallas, I didn't want to get an apartment. And so that started a whole different way of living. And I moved into my car for 3 years, which is a Prius. And so living in Texas in a Prius for 3 years really helped me streamline the things that I think were really important to me. Or, it's like my little my snail shell home. And it, man, I loved it. I knew where everything was. I never had to go back for anything. If I just go to someone's house and I'd stay outside their house and we could have breakfast in the morning, have dinner at night or something. And yeah, it really introduced a new way of living for me. And then after 3 years, I started expanding further out, realizing I didn't need to spend the summers of Texas spending in my car, living in my car for the summers of Texas, and ended up starting going other places, Colorado, California, Pacific Northwest, and then further and further and further until I found myself in other parts of the world. And the thing I realized in Corona is that for the last 10 years, or since November of 2009, I've only stayed, the longest I've stayed in one place is 3 months. And then as of Corona, I was able to stay in one place because I couldn't go anywhere, and I was disincentivized to do so. The longest I stayed was in Colorado. I stayed there this summer for 5 months, which was unusual because usually I have to find my way to. I've got 3 months to be able to find a place, get all my stuff, and then bring all my stuff, and then buy all my stuff, and then create a group of friends, and then be able to create an art project or some sort of interaction with people. And then I've got to be able to get rid of my stuff so I can pare down so I can repeat the process in the next place. And that's been a pattern I've been repeating for 10 years, or a little bit over 10 years. And yeah, I've been realizing more and more how I can start doing different things if I can stay in a place longer. I'm sure it's not that mind expanding of an experience, but it certainly has been nice to be able to realize how portable and mobile and functional and that I've been able to be throughout the world. It's great. I don't know. That's been a big realization that I've been thinking about for sure. mindset, as in, hmm, what in the world? Immediately, things kind of, my first thought is stubborn, but that's thinking that it needs to be, if your mindset is like, okay, like the idea of the artist, I really like that, is that if you're considering, I don't know, it's probably Dolly who said it, doesn't matter. Somebody said it that was important. And they said that an artist is, I'm not a noun, I'm a verb. So my mindset is to be comfortable with uh, the verb that I'm doing in that moment. I mean, I'm painting, I'm digging a ditch underneath the house to fix a leak. Um, I'm finding a place to live. I'm mindset. So first was stubborn, then was a more agile form of mindset. Ah, well, yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm pretty good at uh, going with the flow, and feel like as long as I'm taking care of my food, lodging, I can entertain myself pretty good. So my mindset, yeah, I feel like that was in the previous answer. Actually, I think you're right. Certainly, I've seen myself become a lot more selfish than I thought I would. But I think the selfish attitude that I'm perceiving it to be is much more positive than I thought what selfish could be. I always looked at selfishness as being somehow not helping everyone around me, as if that was important. The selfishness component of, if I'm doing something selfish, then no one's benefiting except me. And I feel like the more and more I'm focusing on the things that I desire to do, there's just maybe it's everybody, and maybe it's just this mindset that I feel like I'm having is I know that something about my personality is, if I learn anything, inevitably other people are going to learn what it is I learn, and I don't see how it's possible for me to have this selfishness benefit just me. I yeah, I wish I knew. I'm 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 sure if I was more well read, I'd understand that better, but I'm just not. I mean, yeah, I think the selfishness aspect is probably the thing that's the most surprising thing that's developed over my lifetime. Makes me want them to be more and more selfish. I don't know what they're focusing on right now, but I I I see. I feel like I should have had some coffee or caffeine or something. I'm right here, but things aren't just jumping to me. What do I think about other people's mindsets? Yeah, I think probably for the most part, I think the majority of people are not. What's the difference there? The selfishness that I want them to have versus what it is they're doing. I think the majority are having to are focusing on what they have to focus on, as opposed to focusing on what they want to focus on, which I think is more bringing out that more desired selfishness. I'm actually surprised that selfishness is such a big topic. For some reason, it's almost like perceived. Immediately when I think of value, I think of something that somebody wants. And the more people who want that thing, the more the value increases. Whether it's a supply and demand experience, there's the lower the supply, and the higher the price, the higher the value. What is that? Or as opposed, you're saying value, not values. Someone's values versus a value. I feel like the thing that's more unusual about this is that I'm usually the one who, especially in this last 10 years, I feel like I've gotten really good at listening and asking questions. And I've been less focusing on my own answers to the questions. Maybe people aren't asking me questions. Yeah, I feel like we should have had a psychology test before this, or a therapy session before this, or maybe that's what this is. What are my values? That makes me want to know what I feel like I need a list of values to know what values are. Definitely feels like a conversation I would be having in high school. I mean, I certainly appreciate variety. I think variety and diversity, or variety allows for that diversity of interaction and diversity of opinion and exposure to cultures and emotions. And I don't know if autonomy is considered a value, but I certainly think autonomy is something I would wish for myself and everyone else. Though autonomy is not, you can only go so far with autonomy because you can't do everything by yourself. You just can't. So there's a certain amount of interdependence that's required. I certainly strive for as much as possible to accept what is given and have that be enough. At least that's what I've told myself for a long time. And on the flip side of that, I try my best to give as much as I can whenever I'm in any particular situation. Yeah, autonomy for sure. I mean, I still think mobility, being able to be as mobile as possible while being autonomous, is something that has provided an incredible amount of variety and exposure to so many different lives and appreciation for a much broader spectrum of ways of living and ways of appreciating so many different aspects of life. Boy, it sure feels like I spend my time doing nothing. I mean, I look around and I see so many people that are so productive with their time, doing shit, making shit, going places and doing things. And I'm not saying I'm a sloth or a snail but I spend a lot of my time just by myself doing nothing, and I could always call that processing time, or but I wouldn't consider myself proactive in trying to work on whatever the next something is. Sometimes it just seems to come and it latches on, and I'm able to develop it very quickly, or have it occupy a certain part of my brain for such a long period of time, and I love it. I love those. I feel like that's almost what I wait for. I allow myself to help others. Maybe it's a help, but when I help others, it allows me to not to spend my money. I'm just using my time and my opportunity to be able to help this person with whatever project they're working on. And then either I get ideas from whatever it is they're doing, or it allows me to consider that my volunteering time, helping out the world and its existence and trying to achieve what it desires. And somewhere along the line, I come across something I want to do, and I can always want certain people to be able to be a part of whatever that is. But I'm I have enough faith that there's always somebody nearby or people around that are interested in trying to help out. They may not be anywhere near as uh, specifically accomplished in whatever it is that I'm trying to do, but I guarantee we can work through with whatever it is. And I feel like that's probably one of the things that I've missed during Corona is the ability to help other people. I've gotten better at cooking for sure, a lot better at cooking, a lot more outdoor activities this year, Corona. I very much enjoy trying to make my uh, portable living setup as compact and dense and uh, personal and functional as possible. I'm very proud of that. And I mean, one of the projects that I know I've been very extremely excited about in the last 5 years, I started realizing that my phone was so damn expensive because every year just or every time I bought a phone, it seemed to get more and more expensive, and so I felt like I needed to protect it more and more, get a case for it, and like then I had to get something more for it because it just wasn't fitting in my pocket because it was getting bigger, and so then I ended up working with a friend of mine, which ended up creating this harness, which I call my holster. It's specifically just to hold my phone, and I have it around my waist 90% of the time, and then the other 10% of the time I put it around my shoulders whenever I'm either paranoid or it's cold or I'm riding a motorcycle or something, and I can leave it up here and safe. Um, I like working through those little ideas, and now it's become basically my little home, my most portable part of my home. Got my passport, my wallet, my phone, my fingernail clippers, and art projects, stickers to give out and things. Um, yeah, very much like being able to work on those ways to be portable and extremely functional. And ideally, I don't consider myself as much of a technician. I certainly can do things, but I guarantee it'll take me a lot longer than somebody who I know I can uh, explain the idea to or draw it out to and have them do it. I've moved way past the need to be able to accomplish it all myself. I'm like, you know how to do something with these particular tools. Well, I have something that could be made from those particular tools. Great. Can we work together? We can't. Oh, okay. Well, you know somebody who could work with. Okay, great. But I feel like that's what most people do. I feel like unlike unlike the person that's interviewing me here, so I feel like you seem to feel the need and desire to be able to create everything, and you have the ability, and you know you can, and so you're able to do it, and it's admirable and inspirational, and to me somewhat exhausting because of the amount of effort it takes to manage and maintain the tools and the space to house those tools, and but there's more that just comes along with it. You just end up learning how to manage those spaces and places and people. Society. I mean, I feel like that's somewhat limiting, but maybe I'm just looking at it in a limiting way. I mean, yeah, how society differing from culture, since they're world cultures. I mean, in general, I think everybody's pretty good about being friends with your neighbor. I think pretty good. I think everybody's pretty good about that. I mean, certainly there are times. I mean, but I think that works across everywhere. I mean, as soon as fences become challenges and borders and boundaries, and I think everyone desires to have clean boundaries and borders. Like perfect example. So in India, I see that there are two rules for driving in India. Two rules. Go anywhere you want to go and don't hit anybody. That's it. I mean, you can go the wrong way, speeding as fast as you want to go. Turn on your horn so you make sure everybody knows where you're at. Zip on past everybody. And everybody's going to do their best to stay away from you. Obviously, but it gets, that's certainly the organized chaos. And of course, the flip side of it, in a Switzerland environment, driving is very strict, all the rules are very well defined. The boundaries are very well defined, and fine, you get fined for everything. What do they value? They both seem to be focusing on taking care of people and human life, but one has a lot more leeway and allows for a lot of experimentation and individual interpretation. I mean, there seems to be a big focus on money. There seems to be a big focus on money. I don't know if that's value, but I guess it is. That's a value. Value is focus on making more money. I feel like that's a pretty popular one around the world. So I feel like I've experimented a lot with what is enough. Um, and I feel like there's a such thing as a tolerance. So certainly, like people, I'm definitely a lightweight drunk for sure. It doesn't take much to get me drunk, but and you can apply that across all chemicals really in general. It doesn't take much. I feel like I'm easily very sensitive. Um, but inevitably, some drugs end up over time, or even they it takes more to be able to get the same effect. And enough, I think, is that same thing. It applies. It's insidious because the desire is to have enough. There's a point of satisfaction that comes with enough. When you have enough, you're like, well, I'm done. Either the law of diminishing returns has come to its peak, and you're like, okay, I don't need as much of that. I need something else. And with with a chemical, with a drug, it's easier. It's more. There's more of a scientific method you can apply to that to be able to see results and have even these feelings that are applied to see what it is you're wanting and what point in time. But when it comes to enough with like money, it's so strange. Like with money, enough, my desires could definitely grow to the amount of money that whatever amount of money I get, I guarantee it. I've only reached a certain level. I'm like, okay, well, I could definitely burn through all of that pretty quick. All I got to do is just do this, this, and this, and wow, things would be different and somehow more smoother. Um, and with enough, it there's a something else has to get in the way. A greater another desire has to take hold higher than the, let's say, money. I mean, for me personally, it's a sparkly, shiny thing level for sure, because I have learned to satisfy myself with very little, and I still consider myself quite the princess, but uh, the amount of money I need to be able to be at that princess level is so much. It's got me so much lower. But it's taken time to realize what's enough in that regard. I mean, I want to have a great sleep every night. I want to have great food every day. I want to have exercise 3 hours a week. If I'm doing that, that's at least enough in those categories. And those are much easier to maintain, and I feel like those are fantastic goals for me, because they seem to be achievable and replicatable and encourage others to be able to do those things. And when I want to spoil myself, I can, or I want to spoil somebody else. Hey, let's go get a let's make a meal together. Let's that can be the entertainment, the shared time. And sorry, we're back to enough. This can keep going. So enough. What if I remember correctly? It's what is enough. Yeah, it's definitely a sparkly shiny in my life. Is that I've reduced my needs to be enough to those three things are acquired. Once those are acquired, then it allows me to be less in need or less desperate to have more of whatever that is. I have the free time to be able to go, okay, I'm going to do this. There's a certain amount of just doing it enough to where I've now come to an impasse. I'm like, okay, well, I don't need to really finish that thing now. I can just pick up that something later and just let that sit there for a while, and then I can have enough for now. Maybe that's what it is. It's enough for now until more is needed. And I think that's on all the different scales, all the different stats. Enough food, enough sugar. I mean, right now I got snacks right here because I like the variety of snacks at easily reachable levels. In fact, I got all my snacks right here too, and uh, that's also something to do because I'm like being portable with all having a variety of what it is I want and have it easily accessible. What is enough? Yeah, definitely what's enough for now. It seems less inspirational, but I mean, I always wonder what I don't think I have any particular addictions. I think the closest thing I have to an addiction is my orgasm. Outside of my orgasm, I don't think there's anything particular that I feel like I need to do or have to do or feel compelled to do. So it feels like enough for now. I don't feel a need to have $1 million, but I don't. If I found that need, then then $1 million I hope would be enough, or I guess it would be enough for now, for this new now. I think my baseline is definitely great sleep every night. I mean, I'm a broken record now. Um, Great food every day, and exercise 3 hours a week. I feel like an aspect that I've certainly had somewhat of a. I feel like I want to say I've suffered this year, but I haven't suffered. I've just been isolated. I remember in the past where there have been multiple times in my life where there have been groupings of friends where we've been able to share lots of experiences, and I want to say that was a big part of well-being at the time. And while I do appreciate being able to have those groupings of friends. Facebook is basically my go-to for being able to have any sort of groupings of friends. Um, so well-being, I've got close family for sure. I feel like there's just a lot of isolation time that I'm familiar with, but I don't. Maybe I just feel like I'm not as productive as I feel I should be in my own isolation time. Well-being. I enjoy seeing groupings of friends like the before this interview when we were talking with the group, the Enter Edom group, and how y'all are starting this whole thing for the last year, and I feel like that's a warm well-being feeling that would bring about a lot of desired well-being. I can see it. I'm sure it's stressful in its way, but it's a need now. It's a need now, and realizing how to take care of yourself during that time of transition from one space to another is, I mean, yeah, I'm picturing how long you've been in the space that you've been at, and having to juggle and rearrange and realize that you got to take care of the sleeping, the eating, and the exercise. And it's not easy. It's not easy, especially if that hasn't been a focus before now. I think the eating has always been a good focus, if I remember correctly. But it changes once you start end up having the passion projects, and then your sleep gets deprived, and then you end up and not exercising, and then yeah, I can see how that well-being can suffer for a while. I'm looking out the window right now, and I'm seeing a bunch of plants outside, trees and bamboo, and certainly I see a lot of strength in the trees experience. But then I think of bamboo and how it's extremely resilient and still extremely strong and and persistent. I don't know how it is where you're at, but here it's one of those things that you have to have it had concrete boundaries, otherwise it will go through everything. Very strong for a plant. Strength and resilience. And I think of strength also can be quite stubborn. Yeah, I like the word resilient much more than I like the word strength for some reason. I know for the longest time in in college, I would felt the need to feel like I could bulk up and like do a weight training program, and did the whole recording everything down on a graph, and saw my improvement, saw my progress, and saw myself getting bigger, and realized after a while it was so much work, not only just to record it and the time going to the gym, but the amount of food I had to put in my body just to maintain that. And I didn't even get that big. I mean, I'm a small guy in general, and so it was just too much work for so little effort, or so much effort. Yeah, too little results for so much effort. And thankfully, I moved on to something more had to do with flexibility, resilience. And I moved on to yoga, and that just transformed my way of understanding of what it is I'm wanting from my body. Yeah, basically, if I want to be able to fall down, not get hurt, and be able to move my body around and be somewhat acrobatic when possible, as opposed to feeling the need to pick people up. Having an excess amount of time, having a nothing I feel I need to achieve in my lifetime. I feel like that's probably my biggest strength, is having no lifetime goal that needs to be achieved. I'm amazed how important that is at least to be able to achieve the life that I'm wanting. Not There's been for the longest time, I feel like I've wanted and needed to have a particular, whether it was a lifelong companion or a house to live in for the rest of my life, or a career that would have some sort of representation of what it is that I've been working for towards. And there just isn't anything. I mean, not a thing. I look around and I see how many people. I almost feel like I'm looking at them in the same way that I look at people who are devout in their faith. It feels so similar. It's that they see whatever it is as being that's the most important thing, and that all I can do is appreciate them for what they're doing. It truly feels like a Little Prince experience in my mind. I'm going around the world and I'm seeing these people, the way they're living. They're so involved, and they're involved in their lives and their community and their spaces. I'm like, how can you spend your life doing this? I have no idea, but I can see that you believe that this is important. And sometimes I feel like they are rejuvenated by it, um, but I haven't felt that. I haven't felt that real draw of any particular one thing. I don't know if I can draw I think I feel like it comes back more to that. I was going to say it was from patience, but I think the patience comes from the not having to having an agenda. I guess the closest thing to agenda is wanting more autonomy. I guess the lack of responsibility and autonomy somehow go together very well. I can already tell this has been a fun conversation for me, even though I'm just talking to myself. I'm sure you're listening, but I'm listening too, which is fun. Not when things are going good. I feel like both of those are. I mean, when things are going good, I don't feel like those two things are not even that noticeable. And whenever there's some kind of challenge that's forces me to question why it is I found myself in that particular situation on the other side of wherever, and I'm having to doubt the people that I'm actually surrounded by, whether or not they're taking uh, taking the situation that I found myself seriously, as if the safety. Hmm, moments of doubt, especially when it comes to something like a physical ailment or sickness. When I'm Yeah, I feel like there were multiple situations where I've been in another country and um, I'm having to rely on paying attention to whatever's going on with my body and relay that to other people. And there's only so much that I feel I can take care of myself and trust and and then being able to communicate to a physician what it is that's going on. Hopefully I can get to that point, and I have, and that is definitely the resilient part, is feeling like, well, at that point you're just kind of letting caution. Hopefully you make it through this one. If not, yeah, that way you can have the story. You gotta have the story's the fun part, I suppose. The moment's not so bad, hopefully. Or emotional, or a relationship experience that goes sour. I feel like that's, especially the relationship experiences that you want to last. I want to last, and having the strength to realize that it doesn't have to, and be resilient enough to, I have the strength to look at myself and see what is it that I actually need, and be strong enough to be able to let this other person do what they need to do. And in that time, realize that it's very possible I could be able to get those things that I'm thinking that I need to get from this person, from other people, or potentially even from myself. Yeah, I guess the easy answer is just whenever times are bad, unless there was a specific something that I was, maybe there was a specific story that I was supposed to tell. I guess well, I seem to keep coming up with the same answers, so I'm hoping that they're somehow connected. I mean, I keep on repeating back the same things. And how are they connected? I mean, I can only apply it to this year because that seems to be such a different year than every other year. The increased self-awareness and the desire to share ways of being able to work through personal struggles, and how to connect with the people around you in societies, and realize the differences between yourself and the societies around you. Yeah, I could see how all of those would be helpful in um, encouraging others to be more into pursuing more of what it is they're wanting to do, I think. Yeah, it's funny how I can't see a direct relation, but as soon as you said that, I immediately thought of Facebook, because that seems to be the biggest community that I'm a part of these days. And I'm enjoying very much seeing enjoying and kind of disliking the fear that's happening with Facebook, and has been building for a while, but more and more people feel the need to pull away and but I actually enjoy seeing the frustration that people are voicing about it, and the worldwide commons that's been created, the be through it. And I'm I mean, I can't. If I could predict where it's all going, I would have those millions and billions. But I I've appreciated so much seeing over the last, I don't know how many years is that now, probably 12 some odd years that Facebook's been part of my life, or probably maybe more than that. And seeing how it's allowed me to communicate with people all over the world and stay in touch with them over the years, and have this common platform in my pocket that I'm now speaking over right now, basically. Not Facebook, but the same phone thingy. And I enjoy seeing how that change that I mean every bit of that is changing society and its values, and honing more universal values, and making them all familiar in some way. Um, and the resilience, I mean, the strength that's I can see from I mean, of course, there's the general things, and there's specific groups that are created. Like, I mean, I'm a part of a men's group that I've been amazed has popped up. It's this one guy that does a bunch of suspension work in a suspension. He does hooks. I mean, they do hooks. I call them suspensions. I'm sure there's a better term for it, but they hook in the skin. They pull them up, and that's an adrenaline rush, and that's an excitement. It's a social environment, and that's one aspect of his life that he's lived and created a huge community here in Dallas. And he has felt the need to be able to create a small group of men that are just talking about complaints. And that's like the first. I mean, I'm 47 years old. That's the first one that I've seen that's popped up that I've been a part of on Facebook, that people are sharing some pretty important stuff. And this guy who's all tattooed up and full body tattoos, he's like almost 6'5" or 6'7", big guy, huge guy, and can seem somewhat intimidated. Of course, he's a super nice, cuddly bear, but he intimidating person is extremely approachable and eloquent online, and inspires many more people to be able to share their weaknesses and their strengths, and they're sharing back and forth. And it's something that I feel like I've been missing in my life, and see how it's been. And I'm terrible at it. I feel like I'm the worst in the group. Seriously, I do not know how to complain. I've actually complained about the inability to be able to complain in the group. It's hilarious. And finally, I started having some things that I complain about, and now I have this venue that I feel like I can share it with, and it's expanding upon how this medium can be used, especially in a time when we can't meet, forcing everyone to be more communicative where possible. Well, I think everybody should try 3 things before they die. I feel like I've had quite a bit of variety in my life, and I think everybody should try DMT at least once. I think everybody should try a 10-day Vipassana silent meditation. I mean, it's a recommendation worth trying. Very. And then I think everybody should try yoga for an hour a day for a year. I think these three things are at least book recommendations that are worth experiencing before you die. I think there is a part of life that you would, I think, would be, I would have, if there's any more that people can recommend to me along those lines that are aspects of life that I should experience before I die, I would like them recommended to me for sure. That's what I got.